Welcome to the We Hack Purple podcast, where once every week or twice this special week, we have a different guest from the information security industry to tell us what it's like to do their job. There are so many different jobs and possibilities and careers within this really awesome industry. And I remember when I joined, I had a lot of trouble figuring out what I wanted to do. Originally, I thought I wanted to be a pen tester, but then it turned out application security was the place that was just right for me, and specifically DevSecOps, because I'm obsessed with automation. But that took years to figure out, and I want you to be able to figure that out a lot faster. So I have invited extremely cool people onto the podcast who, quite frankly, I wanted to meet so that we could learn from them about what their job is like, how they got it, and all of those things. And so it is my pleasure to introduce to you an extra special guest at an extra special time this week, Marie Moe. Here she is. Welcome to the show again.
Very happy to be on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. So, please tell us a little bit about yourself. For instance, you could say your name and your handle, and then just tell us a little bit about yourself, because people will Google you while they're listening.
So my name is Marie Moe, and my Twitter handle is Marie G Moe. You can also find me on LinkedIn, so please feel free to connect with me both on Twitter and LinkedIn. As you already said in the introduction, I'm a senior consultant working for Mnemonic, which is an IT security company. And I'm also an associate professor with NTNU, which is the biggest technical university in Norway. And I have a varied background. Been working more than 10 years in information security since I finished my PhD back in 2009.
That's amazing. That's awesome. PhDs sound really hard. Was it ridiculously hard? Because it looks very hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I don't know if I would recommend it to everyone. It was a struggle to get through, but I managed to, so I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess that having a PhD gives me a good foundation. I have proven to myself that I'm capable of doing that. So that means I'm capable of doing other things too. And I also know how to consume articles and reports and take knowledge out of that. So yeah, and also writing skills. Of course, you will gain some writing skills and some speaking skills because you typically you present things at conferences when you're doing a PhD. So for that reason, I'm really happy that I did my PhD. But while I was doing it, it was really hard.
I have had many friends with a PhD, and I'm like, you are a brave soul.
Yeah.
So you sort of have two jobs, and I was wondering if you would answer for both jobs, because both your jobs are interesting. So one, what is your title? But more, what is a day in the life like to be a professor and also a security consultant? And you can do them in any order you want, but what is your day like?
Well, I have to stress, or I should stress that I'm not a full professor, associate professor, so I haven't really qualified for a professor, but that's like a 20% position. And what I do in that job is that I teach students. I'm teaching a course on ethical hacking, forensics, and incident response, where I'm responsible for the incident response part, because that's what my background is in mainly. And also I'm mentoring students, and I have been a supervisor for several master students while writing their master thesis. That's that part of the job, and that's like a job that I really enjoy and I really like. I'm not doing it for the money at all. It's not, paid well enough for that. But I feel like it's paid in just the satisfaction of seeing a student succeed in their efforts, and that's really something I enjoy doing.
Could people listening take your class? Like, could they sign up and take your class? Because Is it virtual right now?
Well, right now it's virtual, that's right, but you need to actually be enrolled in
Oh, okay.
the university to see the lectures because we're doing it through this portal, so it's not on the YouTubes.
But I mean, like, if I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds awesome, can I just pay and just go to your one class?
Um, Actually, I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
You have to enroll in the program to be able to take my class.
Okay, so
Uh,
everyone's crying now, just so you know, all our listeners are crying.
I'm sorry. But it's possible, if you want to take a master's degree in information security part-time, there's an option at NTNU, and you can look into that. I know many professionals that are already employed in the industry. They do that, like can do it part-time, do it over several years, and that's a great opportunity if you want to progress and get some academic credentials on your CV. So yeah, look into that, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Okay,
that's so
a
that's that.
day in, yeah, so a day in the life of your other job.
So my other job, actually, I just started this year in January in a new job. So that's exciting. It's of course a little bit special to get enrolled in a new job and learn to know a new team, and suddenly everyone is working from home. But luckily, I had a couple of months before the lockdown started, so I got to hang out a little bit with my new colleagues, and I also knew some of them from before because the information security community in Norway isn't that big. So yeah, I tend to know most of the people after some years. Um, so that job is it's a very varied job, working as a security consultant. It's like I'm on the threat intelligence team, so of course part of my daily job is to keep updated on whatever is going on in the cyber threat landscape, keep an eye out for new exciting vulnerabilities and so on, write advisories when that is needed to distribute to our customers and give them information about the new vulnerabilities, give them some advice, and also take actions like, for instance, doing something called indicator of compromise sweeps, where we scan all customers to see if they are affected by a certain vulnerability, if we can find evidence of exploitation in some of our sensors, some of our logs, and so on. So that's a kind of technical part of the job. Then there's also the customer relations. So I'm also a technical account manager for one of our customers, and in that role I have meetings with the customer and find out what they want from our services, if there's something we can improve, if they need some tweaking to the different services that we're offering them. And then there's also more like pure consultant gigs where, for instance, I will get hired in with a customer to help them prepare an cyber exercise, like a tabletop exercise. And that's also like just some examples of what I'm doing in this job. And there's also of course keeping relations to all our collaborators, sharing information about cyber threats, and as part of that, it's very good to have a big network within the community, which I've been able to establish through my different roles in different companies over the years. So yeah, that's I guess a summary of what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Your job sounds awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. I would like to take this moment to thank our sponsor, ThreadFix. They are the most stupendous application security management platform in this part of the galaxy, or the whole galaxy. If you have done more exploring, you'll see that all the other galaxy vulnerability management platforms, not that great compared to ThreadFix, just so you know. What? Okay, so I have told people about security exercises before, but most people have never heard what they are. Could you tell the audience what a security exercise is?
So there are different types of exercises. I I guess the easiest one is maybe to do like a theoretical tabletop exercise where you just gather a bunch of the relevant people in a room and you give them different scenarios that they can like walk through, discuss about, and just figure out what they would have done in case this thing happened to them, like for instance a ransomware attack, and then that's a good test to see, what is the current status. Do everyone know about our incident response plan, for instance, and different roles and responsibilities in like their different roles. So it doesn't require a lot of preparation for the people participating. It does require a little bit of preparation for the people running the exercise, of course. And then there's exercises where you do a little bit more practical, which can also be a tabletop, where you actually use different tools that you would use in an incident response situation. You might have some already prepared, emails coming in, logs having to be analyzed, and so on. And then there's a more bigger exercise where you have several parties participating, where you also maybe involve your contractors, involve people from outside of your organization, and do some kind of role play. And then you can have like red team, blue team exercises where you actually engage someone to actively attack your systems, and then you have your blue team, your defenders, protecting that system, trying to stop the attackers. And then you have like large scale exercises where you involve, several companies, maybe government agencies, and so on. So yeah, there are different scales of exercises, but I would say the overview of what a cyber exercise can look like. And I've participated as a player and also a facilitator of exercises.
Do you always kick everyone's ass if you play? Because you do this as a job. You're just like.
Well, I like collaboration and being a team player. So and also like being the person observing a bit and like figuring out who's doing what and kind of analyzing the situation, the situational awareness part maybe. Yeah.
This actually leads super perfectly into my next question, which was, what types of personality traits and aptitudes does someone need to be good at your job? So like, do they need to be a good listener? Do they need to have attention to detail? Or do they need to be able to see the big picture? What types of things?
Yeah, the job that I'm currently doing, I think I'm using all the skills that I've got over the years. So I think I haven't really got into my CV, but in my previous roles, I learned so much. So let me just go like briefly through the roles I had since I finished my PhD. So back in 2009, when I was done with my PhD, I was ready for something else than academia. So I got a job in a private company in Norway, an electronics company. They're producing road tolling systems for cars. And I was giving a role in the R&D department, which was really hands-on. Like it was like setting up equipment for doing testing in their road lab, which was like outside. We would set up a bunch of antennas and we were driving cars back and forth, testing the communication. It was really fun. It was a lot of hands-on skills, networking, some programming, development. I mean, I can write code, but it's not my best skill. But it's good to have like a knowledge of that. I think to build upon. So I made some applications that would never go into production anywhere, but it was good enough for testing those systems. It was a really fun job, and unfortunately the company got into some financial problems and they had to let go of some employees, So they got rid of my whole team, unfortunately, because our project was like way out in the future. This was back in 2009, 2010, and we were like testing systems for car-to-car communication, which was like back then that was in the future, and didn't really give any immediate revenue to the company. So I guess that's part of why I was let go. So I needed to find a new job, and I really wanted to work more in information security. I mean, my background was in, I did my master's degree in mathematics with crypto as my specialization. And then I went on to information security PhD, where I was working with mathematical models. There's very theoretical. And then I got all these practical things. And then I decided I wanted to do something really exciting within Infosec. And I saw this job posting that sounded just fantastic. It just sounded so intriguing. It was for the Norwegian government, working for their government CERT, so the incident response for critical systems in Norway, so national security. And I got that job. So the job was related to information sharing, the information sharing team, but I also got involved in their SOC team, being an incident handler, or the person responsible for all the incidents at 1 week at a time. So it was a kind of incident management team leader role. And I progressed in that role, and after a few years, I also got promoted to a temporary team leader for the SOC. So we were also building up our capabilities to a 24/7 SOC at the time. So I had to hire a bunch of people, and then that was when I got into my management, got my management skills, and got into a more management role, which was really fun. So I think I hired like 10, 15 people in a year. It was a lot of, job interviews, and but also really exciting and fun. And of course, I was also, as an incident handler, involved in lots of exciting incident response jobs. So we were basically, we had a monitoring system where we detected incidents, and then contacted companies telling them that it looks like you've been hacked.
Oh, what a job, eh?
So I'm the one picking up the phone, informing IT security responsible at the company that it looks like you've been a victim of this cyber espionage operation.
That
So
sounds
yeah,
like an interesting job.
very interesting job. So I guess over this years I gathered some skills, and all of these I'm using in my current role. And after working with the NorCert team, I wanted to move to another city, back to my home city in Norway, Trondheim. So I got another job at SINTEF, which is a big independent research institute. And I got a job as a researcher. So it was a little bit back to academia, like in between.
Yeah.
But it was a kind of variant of some academic work and some more consultancy work. So doing risk assessments, for instance, for organization was also part of that role. And of course, a lot of it was getting grants for doing research, so a lot of writing of grant applications and such.
Patience. Patience, that's what you need for that.
Yeah, no, but also doing the actual research, which was really fun. And was when I started working for SINTEF that I also initiated the pacemaker hacking project, which was like in the start was my personal side project.
Do you
That I
want
did
to tell
myself.
us about that and your TED
Yeah,
Talk?
so that's I guess the project that got me, I guess, a little bit more internationally known. because I've been given a lot of talks about it. Yeah, the short version is, or I don't know if I can do the short version. But what happened was back in 2011, while I was working for the government cert team, suddenly one day I just passed out. It was in the morning. I was getting ready to go to work, and I was standing in the kitchen. I was holding a glass of orange juice in my hand, and the next thing I remember was waking up on the floor. The glass had shattered. I was like laying in a pool of orange juice. My hair was all sticky, and I had no idea what had happened. It was really scary. It turned out my heart had stopped for a while, a short while, but luckily it started again. So I'm still here. I'm still alive. I went into the hospital, and they told me I have an arrhythmia. So my heart was going too slowly. And it also got a bit irregular, so that's why it sometimes stopped. And I needed a pacemaker implant. So 2 weeks later, I was back at work, and I had a pacemaker implanted in my body, and I was turned into a cyborg. Because the pacemaker is actually what's keeping me going. It's generating 100% of my heartbeats. So at the time, I had never thought about, medical device security or hacking of medical devices. It was after I got the pacemaker that I got interested in that topic. Working daily with, cyber attack intrusions, doing incident response, SOC monitoring, that was something that was on my mind. And I started to, as a researcher, I wanted to read the research about this. I wanted to find out, is it possible to hack my pacemaker? And
Oh my
so I
gosh.
started
You're so fearless.
And it turned out not a lot of research had been done in the area. So what I found was one famous article written by a group of researchers at the University of Michigan, led by Dr. Kevin Fu. And they had looked at the possibilities of hacking, or they found a way you could hack a pacemaker by doing a man-in-the-middle attack between the pacemaker and the wireless device, which is called a programmer, that you use to change the settings of the pacemaker. Luckily, in order to do that kind of cyber attack on the pacemaker, you need to almost attack the patient with the equipment and be like centimeters away from their device. So not really something to worry too much about. But the thing I found when I was searching for information was the technical manual of my pacemaker. And I'm the sort of person that always reads the manual. Like I love reading manuals. I know there's two types of people. The one that throws the manual away and just starts doing, like when you get a new gadget, you just start using it. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm the one that like read the manual and then start using the gadget.
Nice.
So I found the manual for my pacemaker, and I found out my pacemaker has 2 wireless communication interfaces. There's 2 antennas on my inside of my body. One of these is used for, as I mentioned, setting the different, like the program for the pacemaker, tweaking the different configuration settings. And of course, it's good that it's a wireless interface for this, because you don't want to get like a surgery and get open up whenever you're going to do like a little adjustment of your pacemaker. But the other one, the doctors had not told me about. So that's a wireless communication interface for connecting the pacemaker to the internet.
What? I'm sorry, what? Ah!
So the way you do this is you need to have an extra box in my case. So remember, my pacemaker got implanted in 2011. The technology takes several years. I mean, in order to sell a pacemaker and get it implanted in a person, there's a long process to get that approved by the FDA and so on. So the technology that was connecting my pacemaker to the internet was built in the early 2000s. And this is something that made me worried as an information security person. So you need, sorry, I was derailing a bit, but you need a separate box. Like it looks a little bit like a home router that can communicate with my pacemaker. It's called a home monitoring unit. And it communicates not using normal Wi-Fi, but there's a special, something called MECS, Medical Implant Communication Service, a special radio communication for medical devices. And this is all proprietary, by the way. There's no there's a standard describing the radio interface, but not the protocol. So all the different vendors of pacemakers have their own proprietary communication protocol with the pacemaker.
That doesn't sound super efficient.
Some newer devices that you get today, they have added Bluetooth communication to the pacemaker.
Oh, good. So people could hack you 2 ways.
So, but anyway, there was no information available at the time about the security of this communication interface. And that was like something churning in the back of my head over the years. Of course, something I was thinking about. On the other hand, of course, I'm really happy that the pacemaker is keeping me alive, is doing its job, is making my heart go the way it's supposed to, at least most of the time. I have had problems with my pacemaker in the start. There was a configuration issue, and I also had one incident when my pacemaker failed. So, but normally pacemaker is doing its job perfectly. It's keeping me alive. It's pacing my heart. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to think about my pacemaker in daily life. I can go for a run. I can do whatever I want. So I'm really happy about this technology inside of me. So, but at the same time, this was something bugging me.
Yeah.
And it was also something that I had talked to, to some of my friends, some of my colleagues, people in the Infosec community. And I guess my project was initiated by being asked to give a talk about it. So I was at a conference about incident response, and I was giving a talk on a completely different subject. And I was chatting to some people in the bar and talking about my pacemaker issues with cybersecurity and pacemakers. And one of my friends, Alexandre, he's running a hacker conference in Luxembourg, Hack LU.
What is it called? Sorry?
Hack LU in Luxembourg.
Cool.
And he said, this is a really fascinating story. Would you be willing to do a keynote on, living with your vulnerable device or maybe hackable device? And I was a little bit, I couldn't answer it straight away. I felt a bit, scared about talking about this publicly, so I had to think about it for a while. But I ended up saying yes to that. So. Yeah, it's like a habit I have sometimes. I like to say yes, I think.
I think it's usually a good habit.
Previous Marie is hating the future Marie and saying yes to things, and then suddenly I have to do them. I don't know if this is a familiar.
Yes, this is a familiar feeling for me. Yes, I'm told there's this word called no, and it's the opposite of yes, and you can say it sometimes.
Yeah.
One day.
I think I've become a bit better at saying no over the years. I don't want to get totally burned out. So
yeah.
I'm trying to not say yes to everything, but it's so tempting. And it's been fun. It's taking me to some fun places. I've been able to do a lot of fun things. So this was a life-changing decision to say yes to do that.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where this is going to take me. At the time, I had not started my project yet. So the talk was supposed to be about just being a security researcher, having a potentially vulnerable medical device, and just create some awareness around that topic. But while I was preparing this talk, I had changed jobs. I was now working as a security researcher, and like one of my key takeaways from the talk was hack to save lives. So I wanted to, like, it was a call to action to get more people into doing security research on medical devices, medical implants. And I was like thinking about this, and well, I'm gonna stand on this stage and say we need to have more research on this, and I'm a security researcher. Why don't I just start the project myself?
Oh.
So that's what I did. I started the project, and I mean, it was a very low budget, almost no budget project. It was on my spare time. I didn't have it wasn't a real project. It wasn't the way you usually start research projects in the academia, where you first have to write a research proposal, find somewhere suitable to send this proposal, wait for, I don't know, 6 to 9 months for a reply, and then get the funding, and then start the project. I just started it on my spare time. And
wow.
The first challenge was get access to devices to start hacking. And I mean, of course, I didn't want to compromise my own implant or use my own device in this research.
And pacemakers are what, $70,000, $100,000? It's not like you can just go get one at the store.
No, but luckily, these devices that communicate with the pacemaker, these boxes that look a little bit like home routers,
Yeah.
they aren't as expensive, and they're actually turned out readily available. I could find them used on eBay for as little as I think it was like $10-20 for one device, one box.
Wow.
So I got hold of a lot of these devices. I also managed to find a pacemaker programmer, which is a little bit harder. That's the device you use to do the configuration of the pacemaker, which they have at the hospital or the clinic. I think I paid like $500 out of my own pocket for getting that used pacemaker programmer from eBay.
Wow.
Shipped from the US to Norway.
Wow, that's surprisingly reasonable.
Yeah. When I saw it, I thought, okay, I'm willing to invest that in my project.
Cool.
And with the help of friends, it was not only me. I had researcher friends helping me in this project, and eventually I was so clever that I made a master thesis proposal for students to pick up if they wanted to write a master thesis on pacemaker hacking. And I was so lucky to get some brilliant students helping out on the project, which is basically kind of free labor. so could go on a very very small budget. But I got some attention after a while. So I did this talk at the HackLU. But someone also tricked me into, I don't know how, to submit a proposal to the Chaos Communication Congress.
Oh, yes.
The biggest hacking event in Europe.
Yep, I've heard of them.
And I got accepted.
And you're like, oh no!
Yeah, I panicked a little bit when I realized that, wow, this is huge. I'm going to give this talk. I think it was like 11 p.m. In the stage with 1,000 people in the audience. And I mean, this thing is like 10,000 more people, and it's huge.
It's big.
Luckily, my friend Erin Leverett said yes to do the presentation with me, because I was so scared about doing this on my own and do that talk. So he gave me a really good support on stage for my first big talk on this pacemaker hacking project. And there was a Norwegian journalist, turns out, in the audience that picked up on me giving a talk there. And he wrote a big spread, like 10 pages in one of the biggest newspapers in Norway about my appearance on stage and my pacemaker hacking project, basically. And this in turn, led to more media attention in Norway and also internationally. And my employer at the time, Sintef, they of course saw this, and I got some internal funding to also work on the project in my day job
Oh,
based on that.
that's so cool.
So that's the story of how the pacemaker hacking project started. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
I mean, it's been 5 years now, and it took a while, to get the first vulnerability disclosure process finalized. I've been through 2 rounds of vulnerability disclosures, where of the first one wasn't, I guess, not successful in a way that we didn't get any CVEs. I mean, it still was a vulnerability disclosure process, but the manufacturers didn't acknowledge our findings.
Boo.
But in the second one, we got, we found vulnerabilities in the home monitoring units, and these were, recognized and
fixed?
no, because there are some newer devices where the manufacturers, so it's been fixed for future and newer devices, but not these legacy devices that we were looking into. But then, unfortunately, they are still on the market. So there is a risk, with using this. So I'm not using home monitoring. I have that feature switched off for my pacemakers. I have to go in to the clinic to get my checkups. There's no data leaving my pacemaker over the internet.
Okay, so that's smart. I think it's sad that you have to do that though, because they can't fix it. Like they haven't planned a way to do firmware update. Were you?
But they implemented some defenses on their side, so that they felt confident that our findings would not lead to, disclosure of patient data or serious patient harm, because our findings, you couldn't really change the settings or do physical harm to a patient. You could just like tap into all the data by using the man-in-the-middle attack that we are looked into.
Did you see that group MedSec, where they had reported some vulnerabilities in a pacemaker,
Yep.
and the company denied it, so they released the report and then shorted the stock?
Yep, I follow that.
Do you have any thoughts on that you want to share, or opinions? It's okay if you want to say nope.
Well, let's just say that I wanted to follow a coordinated vulnerability disclosure. So, I mean, I tried really hard, to reach out to the vendor. I get, like, me and my students, we gave, the students had to have 1 year embargo on their master thesis. They couldn't, it wasn't published for 1 year because we were doing the vulnerability disclosure process. Of course, I want my students to be able to publish their thesis, to be able to, write on their CV what they have done, or show this to potential future employers. That's important. So we really tried, to do this the right way. But I can understand that researchers get really impatient and just don't see that. I mean, if you meet a closed door, someone like just not listening to you, not wanting to engage.
Yes.
I mean, what other option do you have? Because I don't think that we get better security by, not talking about this.
I totally agree. I also think that in academia, they're not necessarily aware of all the processes that exist in industry. Like, I have a friend and she's a student and she's doing her master's. Well, I have a whole bunch of people, but her professor and her were going to release a paper with a bunch of vulnerabilities. And I said, did you do the coordinated disclosure yet? And they're like, what's that? And they're just going to release proof of concepts for 6 different vulnerabilities and not tell the manufacturer first. And I was just like, whoa, okay. You didn't even reach out. You didn't send them an email. And they're like, well, I want to have first dibs that said I did this. And I just care about releasing my paper because then I might get a grant. And it's like, okay, so let's back up. And then I had to send them some articles and talk them out of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I would like to mention the group I Am the Cavalry, which I'm also part of, because being part of the I Am the Cavalry, iamthecavalry.org, if anyone is interested in looking it up that haven't heard about I Am the Cavalry. It's that community has been very supportive and also made it possible for me to get directly in touch with people, for instance at the FDA, and also got me invited over to participate in panel for the FDA, engage with the different stakeholders, and that's been very valuable. So I decided to, when we were starting the vulnerability disclosure process, I felt it was good to have a third party involved. So I opted for engaging with CISA and the FDA in the US, and also the equivalent of the FDA in Germany, because it was a German company that's the manufacturer of my pacemaker.
mm-hmm.
So we collaborated, or it got coordinated via a wonderful lady at the BSI in Germany. So I didn't, I did interact a little bit directly with the company, but it was facilitated by having a third party coordinating, which I think is very helpful. I'm really happy that went okay.
They are very cool. I've seen talks by them and I'm always so inspired what they're working on and what they're fighting for. I shared a link. And if you are listening to this in the audio only format, besides obviously subscribing, clicking the like button, and then writing a positive review, you can go to the show notes and then you can see links to I Am the Cavalry. You can see links to her TED Talk and all sorts of stuff because I think those things are cool. I think that if you're listening, you'll probably think these things are cool too.
I also want to mention DEF CON Biohacking Village.
Yeah.
So a great community, and I've been there several times. I mean, the way that they were able to collaborate with the manufacturer and set up like a hospital lab for hackers to get hands-on experience with different medical devices, just amazing.
That's so cool. That's very, very cool. I'm gonna have to look that up to find their thing. Oh wait, I found it. Awesome. So a question I always ask, because so when people are looking at careers, they want to know if they pay well or not. And so you mentioned briefly that being what kind of professor again? Because in my country, we call it an adjunct professor when you're not like a tenured professor, and it pays basically minimum wage.
Yeah.
So would you say that also in your country, being a not full professor does not pay super well?
It does certainly pay less than working in the private sector. Yeah.
Fair enough.
But one thing that's positive in Norway, though, is if you're a PhD student, you actually get employed by the university and you get a decent wage while doing your PhD.
Oh,
So that's a great.
cool.
If anyone is considering doing their PhD, you should check out positions in Norway, because they will actually give you a wage, a salary for doing your PhD.
And also cool people like Marie live there.
Well, I live in the UK now, in London.
Oh, Dun dun dun, advertisement over. They're like, I don't want to go to Norway anymore. She's not even there.
It's great.
Immigration just stops. So what about being a security consultant? Is that an activity that pays well? So I don't mean to ask exactly how much you mean, but like, or how much you make, but like when I figured out that I was being paid well as a software developer, it's when I went to the grocery store and I was like, oh, I want to buy this type of cheese. Oh, but this type of cheese looks really good. And I was like, you know what? I make enough money. I'm going to buy both. And then I was like, I've made it. So would you say that being a security consultant pays well, really, really well, not so well?
I would say it pays well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy with my salary.
Okay, because not all jobs in security pay really well. Like we've been discovering this as we go through the jobs, and sometimes people will think, oh, like if I do this, it'll be like this super high paying job, and it's like, actually. So yeah, I suspected that being a consultant might pay really well. Like pretty good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's okay. And I mean, but of course, I'm a senior level now, and I mean, when you start out, I don't know if salaries are like super like. Uh,
For sure.
so when I started out, I mean, it wasn't like I was super well paid. Um,
Fair enough.
yeah.
So let's say someone listened to this and they're like, her job sounds awesome. So I thought it sounded awesome. So I'm going to assume that other people watching also thought it was great. What types of actionable steps could they take to try to move towards a job like your job?
So yeah, I want to say start out working for a SOC is a great place to start, and you know there are some great internships you can have while you're a student also working for some SOCs, because SOCs typically have 24/7, and there's night shifts, and I mean that's typically an entry level position, and working as an analyst at the SOC, you get exposure to so many different things, and it's a great way of learning. And also seeing the Mnemonic, which is the company I'm working for now. I don't see if you see my background is taken from the Mnemonic SOC, and and I mean, we have internships available at the SOC, and I'm sure there's other SOCs in other companies that also have that, and that's a great way of getting started. And I know several of my colleagues that have been working for the company for 10, 20 years. They started out in the SOC and then like gradually, got different roles and got different types of experience. And I highly recommend that. And of course, I recommend, I mean, being an academic, I recommend also getting into Infosec through academia. I mean, there's now you can have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in Infosec, which wasn't necessarily the case when I was a student. And so that's a possibility now, and I mean that's a great way to start, and also to do lots of things on your own, like do the research. I mean, dive into the things you think are fun. Participate in capture the flag challenges if that is your thing. Try different online exercises. I mean, there's so many great things available for free. I mean, you can also follow a lot of lectures for free on the internet. I mean, that's where I would start. Just try different things, see what you like, and deep dive into that, and get some technical skills that will like land you your first job, and then just go from there. I mean, I didn't have a career plan when I started. I just did the things I thought were fun and sounded exciting, and it brought me here. So I'm really happy with my career path.
I think that is some really excellent advice. And I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. And I want you to tell everyone how they could potentially follow you or learn more about you. I shared your Twitter on the screen, but most of the people will just listen to this. So
Okay.
I know you're speaking at a couple conferences. How could they find out about this, Mary?
Uh, Whenever I'm speaking at conferences, I typically try to tweet about it, but you can also follow me on LinkedIn. Yeah, there's some upcoming online conferences that I'll be talking at, including CS3 Stockholm, that I would recommend if you're into ICS OT security. It's a great conference, and in that one, I'm not going to talk about my pacemaker this time. It's going to be about the cybersecurity in the oil and gas business.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, also one of my favorite conferences that I also speak for this year is FIRST, Forum for Incident Response Teams. Yeah, there are several upcoming conferences.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Would you mind saying out your Twitter handle again, just in case someone didn't get it earlier?
Yeah, so it's Marie G. Moe.
Perfect.
And
And
if you go in Marie Moe Cyborg or Marie Moe Pacemaker, you'll certainly find find me on the internet.
awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I am going to do a little bit of wrap up now. So thank you again. Gosh, your story is so awesome. And your advice was great. Thank you. So I want to thank everyone for coming to the We Hack Purple podcast once again. I am your host, Tanya Janca, and I have a book that I am told I need to tell you about. And it's called Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. And you can get it on Amazon. You can pre-order it now. Please do, because I'm super competitive and I'm trying to beat another person at my publisher for the most pre-sales, but also because it's awesome and about AppSec. We also just released a whole bunch of brand new courses at wehackpurple.com, including a foundational program about what is application security. You can follow us on Twitter at wehackpurple, on LinkedIn, again, wehackpurple Academy. And most of all, I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have feedback for us, we would love to hear it. You can send us an email at info@wehackpurple.com, or even better, if you have good feedback, put it in a review. And if you put it in a review for the podcast and you send us a screenshot on Twitter, we will mail you stickers. That's right, bribery for us at We Hack Purple. See you again next time. Thank you so much. Bye. I would like to take this moment to thank our sponsor, ThreadFix. They are the most stupendous application security management platform in this part of the galaxy, or the whole galaxy. If you have done more exploring, you'll see that all the other Galaxy vulnerability management platforms, not that great compared to ThreadFix, just so you know.